Now we'll look at critical discourse analysis and nationalism. Nationalism as a philosophy has many discourses about it, and this can be a potential site for critical studies in future. In the beginning, I'll just introduce what nationalism is, and from this you can have a view about the possibilities which we can avail as researchers in the field of critical discourse analysis. Nationalism was almost an obsolete force after World War One, and with the creation of regional forces such as European Union, there was a tendency that many regional communities were creating their combined communities, you can say, or a group of nations on the pattern of European Union. But recently we have seen that there has been a decline in such common regional tendencies, and we have seen a resurgence of nationalism or nationalist communities and feelings among common people. And therefore we have seen passionate nationalist movements in various parts of the world, including in Africa, in America, South America, especially in Middle East, Southern Europe, and in the successor states of Soviet Union. New nationalism also emerged based on religious affiliations. People belonging to certain religion align themselves to the people belonging to the same religion, and we see divisions of countries based on religion also. Therefore, overall, we can see that recently, in spite of an ever increasing globalization and squeezing distances among nations and the people living in those nations, we can see a rapid rise in the feelings of nationalism among country, and we can assume that there is a rise of walls and hindrances among nations, which creates some kind of ideological or emotional distances among people. So nationalism overall has researched again with, in a garb of securing people from possible dangers from other nations. On the one hand, we have global tendencies to transcend the nation state, but on the other hand, we have strong tendencies proposing a return to nation state, which previously, before World War One, was a hallmark of our world. Now, I'll just try to define what nationalism is. Modern nationalism originated in Europe primarily as a result of French Revolution, in which we have an industrial economy and then establishment of nation state as the primary principle of social organization. So nation state was given the responsibility of managing various affairs in a certain community. So nation state, the concept of nation state emerged as a as a larger regulatory body in a community. Gellner more precisely defines it as a kind of political principle that holds that the political and the national units should be congruent. They should go side by side. Political and national sides should be together. This may be regarded as the general imposition of high culture on society, where previously there were a low culture, or many low culture were existing together. By promoting nationalism, we provide a common feeling, common sentiment to the people, and there are certain dimensions of those common feelings, maybe the kind of dresses to be worn, kind of literature to be promoted, or kind of ideas to be promulgated, and the kind of ideas which we need to stay away are also promoted in such things. So a kind of high culture organized on a national level is promoted to the people which previously were living with many other or small or low cultures. According to Gellner, it may involve a monitoring also of the polity of the society. Therefore, it would involve an expensive and expanded bureaucracy. There would be linguistic standardization, the language which should be spoken, which should not be spoken, which language should be spoken in which domain, and what decides the formality and informality of the language may also be a part of such management. Then national identification, the identity. There are certain markers of identity also. One of these markers may be the national color, national bird, or national song, national anthems. They all become markers of identity. A focus on cultural similarity as a basis for political legitimacy for such nation states. So nation states focus on certain cultural metaphors which provide some kind of similar or common identity to its citizens. Anderson also sees nation as some kind of imagined political communities, imagined both as inherently limited and sovereign. It's limited to certain territorial domains and sovereign in its own rights. It has the government in that community or in that territorial entity has the state has the sovereign power to govern its people, and that sovereign powers should not be challenged by any other neighboring or remote powers. Rather, that should be respected in the community of the world. That's the basic concept of nation state. They are imagined because the members of even the smallest nations will not know most of them, most of the people living around them, and still they would feel connected. They would imagine that they are connected with the people living around them. So in this way we call these or the nation calls or the Anderson calls nation as an imagined community. Woodick is critical of Anderson's view of a nation because he sees that such view comprising nation as an imagined community or as a uniform community may not be applicable to the contemporary community in which there is a rapid migration from one nation state to another. There is a quick means of communication, and there is rapid communication actually occurring among people living in various nations. So we cannot apply Anderson's view of nation on the contemporary heterogeneous societies. Nations, according to Woodick, nation's view of nation, Anderson's view of nation may be applicable to some homogeneous society which could be available in previous centuries, but it's not possible to be found in today's world. Identity is one of the key, or you could say is a kind of important term in the contemporary nation state theories, because identity is something both individual identities of the citizens and their collective identities both are very important to contemporary nationhood. But we need to see that such concepts of identity are not static as they were perceived previously. Rather, they keep on changing. They are a dynamic force, and they should keep on developing their identity. So identity can be seen as a dynamic, fluid, and fragmented force which cannot be static. It would keep on piling on itself. They can also be negotiated according to socio-political and situative context. So identities might change according to the changes in the context. Transnationalism is another concept which is very relevant these days. Transnationalism is going beyond the concept of nation states. And it looks into the establishment of social, cultural, economic, and political ties that operate beyond the nation state. I mean, this believes in socio-economic, political, economic, and strategic ties between various nations, and where the boundaries of the nations may be territorial or ideological boundaries, they are weakened for a certain glorified purpose. The sharp increase of transnational communities is seen as undermining the means of controlling difference founded on territorial forces or territorial demarcations. So the previous concept of nationhood was primarily based on territoriality or territorial boundaries, which is weakening now because the physical boundaries, are being challenged by the virtual worlds being created now. Costells also says that transnational communities is a powerful challenge to the traditional ideas of nation state belonging, which is primarily based on territorial demarcations. In the context of globalization, which we are observing, which we are experiencing these days, transnationalism can transcend previous face to face communities based on kinship and neighborhoods, and now it it relies on, or in other words we can say it is based on the virtual communities through various social networks may be available to us through media or other means of communication. So such communities have gained a lot of currency in recent times, and they may be very important to the ideas like transnationalism in the contemporary world.